Welcome to Muzukuru Funeral Streaming. We are honored to provide you with a dignified way to be present, even from afar, to remember, reflect, and celebrate the life of a loved one. As we prepare to begin the stream, we ask you to take a moment to create a peaceful and respectful environment around you. Please switch your phone to silent or do not disturb mode. This helps you stay present without interruptions from calls or messages.
2.
Find a comfortable, quiet place to sit. Feel free to light a candle, hold a photo, or invite someone close to sit beside you. This is your moment to connect and remember. Our stream will begin shortly. You may see a short pause or holding screen before the ceremony begins. This is normal. Our team is working in the background to ensure everything runs smoothly. During the stream, we kindly ask you to keep background noise to a minimum. If you are watching with others, please speak in hushed tones. For the best viewing experience, ensure you are connected to a stable Wi-Fi network. If the video pauses or buffers, don't worry. You can refresh the page or wait a moment as it stabilizes. This service is not just about technology. It is about presence, memory, love. Whether you're in the next room or another country, your presence here matters. Thank you for trusting Muzukuru Funeral Streaming. We are with you to honor, remember, and connect.
Has everyone got a drink? Is everyone seated? I can't speak up, Gareth. Turn it up. Thanks, Kaz. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us here to celebrate the life of my dad, of Pops and of Opie. Just first and foremost, if we can all make sure our phones are turned off, on silent, or any other means of device of getting them to not ring during the service. Good afternoon to all of our online viewers. There are many, and we just want to let you know that as we are playing songs due to copyright issues, the songs won't play online. However, we will showcase the name of the song and the title, and it will be silent throughout the duration of that song, so there's no need to refresh the screen at all. As many of you know, as a family, we're a tad unconventional, and so we come today to celebrate him in our own way, simply, quietly, and gently. One of Dad's favorite times of the day was Baku time, a tradition that began one fine day where Mom felt the need to have her afternoon drink a few hours earlier than normal. Mom announced that it must be 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, to which a very supportive Dad replied, upon a quick Google search, that it appears that there is a place called Baku, which is currently at 5 p.m. And so, in keeping with the tradition of Baku time, we will be serving Cactus Jacks to everyone. Because there's nothing that he loved more than the offer of a Cactus Jack, regardless of what time of the day it was. In fact, I think our last Cactus Jack had was with Dad was at 9:45 in the morning. And so where I rolled in with a couple of bottles of booze, and he said, well, it's time to celebrate the bottles of booze, so let's just have a Cactus Jack. So it is alcoholic, so that everyone knows, but please help yourselves, and we can all toast together in a second, but I know that Dad would have loved to have this Cactus Jack to one of his favorite songs, The Sound of Silence.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Carry on, I just want to open up in prayer. Lord, we come before you this afternoon with our family and our friends, a little bit brokenhearted. For today we mourn the loss of a man that has had a profound impact on every one of us here today, both present and online. At the center of his life was you, Lord. And so we place you at the center yet again to hold us as we grieve. And as we face the days ahead, we take solace knowing that Dad is alive with you, watching down upon each of us. And whilst there are many days to come, filled with silence, with tears, and with longing, we take comfort in the knowing that you hold each of us in your hands to comfort us, guide us, and keep us. In your name, Amen. 2.5 years ago, I promised Pops that I would hold this memorial for him. Back then, I got into action and I wrote his service thinking his time had come. I wanted to be prepared because that was Dad's motto in life. It wasn't until he passed away last week that I realized you cannot write about grief until you're in the thick of it. And so I began to rewrite this day. I've spent a lot of time wondering what you're supposed to say when you stand up here to speak about your dad. The words I'd written previously seemed so hollow. How do you possibly put a lifetime of love, memories, lessons, arguments, laughter and admiration into a few minutes? To tell a story so deep and yet led by a life of humility. And the truth is I don't really know how to do it. And so I thought to start in the beginning. A tribute from his sister Anne about his younger years and about brotherhood. My brother Cornelius, my little butty, I celebrate your life. Corny's life to me was a little light shining brightly in a small corner. I could write a book about him, but you all know because you were with him, spent time with him. The times he used to come and visit me in Durban, we talked about all sorts. He taught me how to download music and photos. He used to send photos of the whole family and always kept me updated. I felt included. He was my record keeper, sending me dates of births, deaths, and many others. On one of his visits, he brought me his raggedy shirts and pants to fix, which Corinne wouldn't repair anymore. I did them, but I told him he really should listen to Corinne. On one of those trips, he also brought down his own personal mix of biltong spices, just to teach Alex and I how to make biltong. The smallest things made him happy. The smallest gift he was given, he was so overjoyed with it. For his 21st birthday held at my folks in Gweru, my eldest sister said, "Let's give Corny 21 bumps." I'd never heard about this before, but I was game to try. And so I had to take Corny's feet and she had him under his arms. He was stronger and taller than us, so it was easy for him to kick himself free. And of course, I got a kick in my left eye, to which he took out a section of my eyebrow and eyelashes, which have never grown back. And so every day I remember him when I see myself in the mirror, when I go out, and when I have to do miracles to cover up the gaps. No one is the wiser. Speaking of wise, Corny was wise. He was caring, giving, funny, respectful. He didn't mind helping all and sundry, incredibly talented in everything he did. Everyone I know that met him admired him. I told him he was aptly named Cornelius. I'm sure God saved him and the pilot of the helicopter crash he was involved in when he was in the Air Force. And so I've known a lot of miracles in his life, more than once. He was so proud of his family, Lauren, Corinne, and Gareth. He supported their choices, Justin and Bianca too. And he absolutely adored his grandchildren, Bella, Kayla, Eliana, and Jessie. He was overjoyed with you all. I'm so happy to have had the privilege of having time with you all 2.5 years ago, to have my last precious moments of being with him, and sad to see him bedridden, and continue to pray for his strength and healing. So, of course, I'm still in shock because I was so happy to see him in recent photos up and about and walking around. God's timing and God's will are everything. I'm happy that he's gone home to where one day we will meet up again, where he is in no more pain, but with Jesus. In this world, I will miss him. You have always been chosen. Corny, I would have chosen you as my brother if I had a choice. You were the best brother ever, and I shall remember you, and you are now in my heart as a wonderful memory. Dad later moved on to the Air Force years, which were probably his happiest time. He joined the Air Force shortly before his 18th birthday and qualified as an airframes technician. And though it was wartime and the unpleasantness that went with it, he seldom spoke of this. Instead, he referred to them as some of the happiest years of his life on the 7th Squadron, flying around in Alouette helicopters. This was his true passion. He was military-minded, and he kept this standard throughout his life. It was with great sadness that through certain circumstances he retired from his flying days after a bad helicopter accident, and he then joined Airwork where he met Ian Doig. One of Dad's many quirks and quests for perfections and habits can be attributed to this friendship, a friendship that began over the past 30-odd years. It was here that Dad was taken under Ian's wing to learn the words meticulous, perfection, anal, and attention to detail, traits his family would later call popping the balloon. A tribute from Ian Doig. Outside of work, we got together for many braais. At one of the braais, I mentioned to Corny with much excitement that I'd bought a car alarm from Game in South Africa. This was in the 1980s. He burst out laughing and said that I'd been had. I was furious. We decided to open the alarm and found a small piece of metal inside which, as soon as the car was rocked, was supposed to activate the hooter. It didn't work. For years after, Corny reminded me of what a great car alarm I could buy from a different shop. In the 1990s, we planned a camping trip to Chappice hot water resort near Messina in South Africa. I drove in my Datsun Sunny station wagon and towed a trailer. Corny and family were in his bucky with a trailer. On the way to Chappice, my car started giving clutch problems. We decided to ignore these and carried on to enjoy our holiday. On the day we left to return to Zimbabwe, we went ahead so that if anything happened, Corny would be behind us to check that all was okay. However, the clutch got worse and worse with every kilometre travelled, and eventually came to a grinding halt at Booby River. When Corny arrived, he pulled over, and he decided to put a tow rope from underneath his bucky, underneath the trailer, and attach it to the front of my Datsun, and off we went. About an hour and a half later, we were driving along and came across a police road check. Oh, Schweppes. The cops looked at both of our cars and both of our trailers and the tow rope and declared we were not going any further. He also wanted to give us a fine, but Corny, being Corny, managed to get us out of it. We decided that he would then go on to Musvinga to organize a tow truck to fetch us, in which he did. The tow truck arrived and loaded my Datsun onto the back of a lowrider with the trailer towing at the back. I sat in the driver's seat of the Datsun and the family sat in the front of the tow truck. On arrival in Musvinga, there was Corny and Corrine with their video camera welcoming me in, filming me sitting in the top of my car on the tow truck, which was very amusing to them. I can still see and hear them laughing. We all climbed into Corny's bucky and drove us home to Harare. The following day, we borrowed a tow bar. Corny drove me back to Musvinga to collect the car. It was a memorable holiday that will never be forgotten. We had good times with Corny, Corrine and family and always met up with them on their holidays to South Africa. He was a loving and caring husband, father and grandfather, and a genuine friend. Our friendship was very special and we'll always remember him. Fly high, my friend. Dad's years of fatherhood. Some dads are heard saying that they were thrown into fatherhood. This cannot be further from the truth in our case. Dad was born for fatherhood. He thrived in it. After all, he now had a reason to take his meticulous teachings of precision that he learnt from Ian Doig and thrust them upon us as kids. It was an honor for Dad to guide us, to teach us, and to impart these pearls of wisdom upon us. The next tribute is from Gareth.
Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, rejoices with the truth. But rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. We almost exclusively hear that verse at weddings. But as I sat down to think about what to say today, the only word that kept coming back to me was love. And when you take 1 Corinthians 13 and place the word love with Pops, it doesn't just make sense, it reads like a biography. Pops was patient. Pops was a master tradesman with his hands. If you brought him a broken gadget, an engine that wouldn't turn, or a household disaster, he'd look at it, nod, and fix it. But his patience went beyond the workshop. This was a man who worked all week, yet still found time to coach junior school cricket 3 times a week. And as if coaching dozens of energetic kids wasn't enough, every Friday night he would put on the Cub Scout outfit and step into the role of Bagheera for Cub Scouts, to teach that many young boys how to tie knots, play fair, and build character takes a rare level of patience. Pops was kind. You almost never heard Pops speak ill of anyone. Beneath that practical, capable exterior, he was actually a complete softie. His kindness wasn't loud, it was quietly executed in ways you never expected. Not once, not twice, but on 3 separate occasions, when I was driving up from Cape Town, Pops drove his car all the way down to Joburg just to meet me, so I wouldn't have to tackle the long haul alone. This was just who he was. He didn't offer a lecture on safety, he just turned up and drove alongside you. Pops did not envy, Pops did not boast. Pops never envied a single soul. He was genuinely deeply content with what he had right in front of him, and he made sure to pass that wisdom down to us. Whenever I'd get into my head that I needed the latest gear, like a brand new set of golf clubs, Pops would bring me right back down to earth. Get a set of clubs you can actually afford, learn how to play them well, and start shooting better scores before you look at shinier clubs. For Pops, it was never about looking the part. It was about doing the work. He was a man of quiet simplicity. He didn't chase the latest gadgets or look over the fence wishing he had what someone else had. The closest Pops ever came to luxury was a simple Seiko watch. He loved that brand of watch, not to show it off, but because he genuinely appreciated its beauty, its reliability, and the quiet way it did its job. Now, Pops didn't waste any energy on anger, but he certainly understood psychological warfare. I'll never forget the time Rob and I managed to break a car window. My mom, absolutely furious, sent us straight to my bedroom to wait for Pops to get home. Terrified of the lashing we were certain was coming, Rob and I took immediate defense measures. We put on every single pair of underwear, shorts and trousers we owned. Layering up, we could barely bend our knees. There we sat, sweating 5 layers of denim in total silence, waiting for the door to burst open. But Pops never came in. He didn't need to raise his voice or lay a finger on us. He just let us stew in our multi-layered terror all night. Pops always chose reliability over aesthetics and modesty over fanfare. He never cared for boasting about himself. The only time Pops ever acted loud or boastful was when it came to Lauren and myself. If either of us was called up at a school to receive an award or picked for a hockey team, you didn't have to look for Pops in the crowd. You just had to listen. As soon as your name hit the PA system, a sharp, deafening wolf whistle would shatter the silence from the back row, followed by a wide, all-teeth smile and a thunderous, "Come on, Van Rooyen!" He didn't care about impressing the world, but he made sure the world knew how proud he was of his kids. Pops did not dishonor. Pops was never a man to demand respect. He commanded it simply by the way he lived. He taught us that respect isn't something you claim. It's something you earn through consistency and character. You would almost never hear Pops speak ill of another person. He didn't indulge in gossip or cheap talk, and his word was an ironclad contract. If Pops gave you his word, you could bank on it completely. It meant everything to him, and he expected the same integrity from us. From the time I was old enough to understand, Pops didn't just teach me the difference between right and wrong. He taught me what it meant to honor women. There was one rule that was non-negotiable. I was never allowed to raise a hand to Lauren. Not even a typical sibling squabble. If I so much crossed the line, Pops made sure I learnt the lesson immediately, clearly, and in a way I would never forget. He showed me that the real strength wasn't about power or dominance. It's about protection, kindness, and deep respect. That lesson took root into me as a boy, and it remains one of my greatest gifts he ever gave me. It shaped the kind of man, partner, and husband I became, and it is the very foundation of the love, respect, and strength I cherish with my marriage today. Pops was not self-seeking. Pops was the first to step up, the first to offer help, and without fail, the man with the plan. You always knew his mind was hard at work when you'd hear that soft, familiar whistling coming from him, or see him pull his nose. The moment you heard that, or he did that, you knew that Pops had calculated every move and figured out the solution. He was entirely selfless, and nowhere was that clearer than when we were out on the water. When Pops bought his new boat, it was an absolute pride and joy. Most guys would guard something like that with their lives, but Pops didn't hesitate to pass the wheel straight over to me. He taught me how to launch it, how to read the water, where the wake should sit when you're running full tilt, and how to dial the trim just right. Looking back, as much as he loved that boat, he gave me a true delight and was passing that knowledge down to me. He didn't just teach me how to drive a boat. He gave me confidence, independence, and a skill I still carry with me today. Because of him, when the day finally came for me to buy a boat, there was only ever going to be one person sitting in the passenger seat for that maiden voyage. He didn't. Could you bring me a tissue? Okay, I got it. All I'd ever really wanted was to take my dad out on my boat, to sit there in calm water, share classic cheese sami, and talk about rubbish, just like I were used to. And then, of course, were the legendary fishing competitions. We always played for high stakes. First fish, biggest fish, most fish. $20 on the line for each category. Half the time I'd pull in some pathetic little scrap of a fish, and somehow Pops would wind up handing over the money anyway. I realize now that he did it intentionally. Whenever life was weighing on me or I was going through a tough patch, Pops would quietly lose a fish bet just to lift my spirits and put a smile back on my face. That was Pops, completely effortlessly selfless. Pops was not easily angered. Growing up, Pops rarely shouted. He didn't need to. He had a complete arsenal of non-verbal discipline. A single raised eyebrow carried the weight of a court sentence. If things escalated, you might face a size 9 slipper or a well-aimed mulberry stick, but almost never a harsh word. That said, I did see him leap out of his chair once. Lauren had brought home a school report card that was, let's just say, anything but desirable. When Pops challenged her on it, Lauren calmly looked him in the eye and said, "Well, if it's good enough for me, it should be good enough for you." That sentence was pure aviation fuel. Pops launched himself across the living room like a guided missile. I can't tell you how the situation resolved because my legs were already moved at top speed down the bottom of the garden. Then there was the night I was driving out late with my newly revamped Mazda B1800. Fresh from the club, I decided it was a fantastic idea to do a few rips and tear-ups on some pristine, well-groomed suburb lawns. After a few glorious runs, the car gave a violent shudder, a loud bang, and lost all power. I managed to limp the dead Mazda home and decided the safest strategy was to sleep on it and talk to Pops in the morning. The next morning, Pops popped the hood, did a brief investigation, looked at me completely unbothered and said, "Well, looks like you've popped the motor. No worries. Push it down to the bottom of the garden, grab some overalls, and open the bonnet. You're about to learn how to rebuild an engine." No yelling, no lecture, just a practical lesson in consequence and mechanics that taught me more about respecting machinery and life than 1,000 scoldings could ever. Pops kept no record of wrongs. No matter how many times you managed to mess up, Pops never kept a running tally. He didn't hold grudges, and he certainly didn't stockpile your past mistakes to use against you later. Every single conversation started on a clean slate. I tested this policy more times than I care to admit. When I was young, I briefly entertained a wildly misguided career path as a master thief. My grand heist, a pocket knife. Naturally, I was caught red-handed. I know it hurt Pops to see me make a choice like that, but he never labelled me, never branded me a thief, and never brought it up again. Instead, he administered a swift, potent dose of public humiliation, walking me right back into the shop to look the owner in the eye and apologize. Lesson learnt, case closed, slate wiped clean. Then there was a time in high school when I decided to invent a completely horrendous lie just to get out of afternoon class. Pops didn't bother giving me a lecture when he found out. He simply made a quick call to the headmaster to request that my backside receive a proper, thorough tanning. I marched home that afternoon sporting a brand new set of stripes, having completely lost the ability to sit down for a week. Pops took one look at me, gingerly hovering near the furniture, gave me a subtle smile and softly said, "General, I bet you won't be telling stories like that again." That was his style. The discipline was delivered, the lesson was taught, and then it was over. He never rubbed it in, and he never held it over my head. He just offered a fresh start every single time. Pops did not delight in evil, but rejoice in truth. Of all the qualities Pops possessed, his uncompromising truth was near the very top. He carried himself with a quiet, undeniable authority. There was zero pretense, zero exaggeration, and zero spin. Whenever Pops spoke to you, you knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that you were hearing the absolute truth. For a young man navigating the world, that kind of honesty was an absolute lighthouse. Whether you were stranded on the side of the road trying to figure out a mechanical disaster under the hood or standing at a crossroad in life needing real advice, Pops's word was the golden standard. He had a way of stripping away all the noise and giving you the unfiltered, honest reality of the situation. We trusted him completely. If Pops said it, it was the end of the matter. I don't ever recall questioning his words for a single second. In a world full of noise and uncertainty, knowing you could anchor yourself to his truth was one of the greatest comforts we could ever ask for. Pops always protected. Pops was the ultimate protector to our family, and sometimes that meant protecting us from our own stupidity. Just recently we were talking about how I started smoking at such a young age. Back then, I thought being a master of stealth, sneaking down to the bottom of the garden to double clutch on a cigarette butt Pops had just tossed out. But Pops knew. Instead of turning it into a massive blow-up that would only drive me further into the shadows, he quietly made a call. He allowed me to smoke in front of him. I'm sure it came with plenty of internal disappointment, but it completely stripped away the urge to be devious or hide it. He knew that taking away the thrill of the secret was the best way to keep me safe from making worse choices. Now, when it came to the physical protection against actual intruders, Pops was built different. He was on another level entirely. Back when we were living at 7 Bidford, I woke up in the middle of the night, looked out towards the cottage and spotted a few uninvited guests attempting a late-night break-in. I sprinted to my parents' room to warn him, only to find Inspector Cornelius already standing at the window, calmly observing the situation. With a look of pure, unadulterated delight, Pops turned to me and said, "Let's go sort these guys out." My heart surged. I thought, this is it, I'm finally getting a gun. Pops reached over, looked me dead in the eye, and handed me a wooden baseball bat. Meanwhile, he happily racked a fully loaded 9mm for himself. Standing there holding a piece of lumber while he supported a massive, cheeky grin, my disappointment was immeasurable. And then, purely for shits and giggles, Pops laid out the tactical strategy. "Right, you go around the side and flush the tsotsies out in the open. I'll wait around the corner with the gun." Yes, his master plan was using his own son as human live bait. We laughed about that night for years, and to his credit, when it happened again a while later, Pops decided I earned an upgrade and finally handed a 9mm of my own. Then there was the legendary Honda Fit incident. We had several armed guys lurking in the yard one night. Suddenly Pops rolled up in the driveway in his Honda Fit. He opened all the doors, stepped out into the dark like a budget Terminator, and the sound followed was unforgettable. It sounded like 10 different weapons being cocked in unison, just like an action movie, minus the blockbuster budget, but with all the threat. Pops always trusted. You really had to jump through hoops to earn Pops' trust. He offered it up front, right from the start. But once you held that trust, a whole new level opened. He had a remarkable way of guiding and directing you without you even realizing you're being steered. When I was at school, he actually let me take out his Isuzu, a monster of a truck with more than enough power to make me feel like an absolute big cheese at school. Now, I'm certain he wasn't thrilled about the way I was hucking the Isuzu around, but he never gave me a lecturing reprimand. He trusted me to figure it out. And then the Honda Civic. I only had it for a couple of days when Pops casually mentioned he wanted to take it for a spin to see what it could do. He got behind the wheel, took it out on the open road, and pushed it all the way to 180 kilometers an hour. He calmly looked over at me in the passenger seat and said, "It's a fast car, but now you know the speed it can do." Unbeknown to him, or so I thought, I had taken that exact same speed the day before. But looking back, I knew he knew. I know he knew. He didn't scream, he didn't confiscate the keys, and he didn't give me a lecture. Instead, he packaged the lesson in a way that convicted me for the rest of my life. The image of him looking over at me stayed burnt in my mind, and from that day on, it kept me from ever blindly gunning it again. He had an incredible gift for reminding you that life is precious, and he had a way of speaking directly to your heart without ever raising his voice. It didn't matter how many times I stumbled, failed, or accidentally tested his patience. Pops always wiped the slate clean and chose to trust again. Pops always hoped. For Lauren and me, Pops was nothing but the absolute best. He held an unshakable hope for our futures, wanting to see us succeed in everything we poured our hearts into. And to make sure that we had every chance to do so, his support was completely unwavering. Pops didn't just show up for the big moments. He showed up for all of them. He never missed a single hockey match of mine, and he rarely missed practice sessions either. I'll never forget going training at Magamba Stadium on those cold or late afternoons. You'd look up at the massive empty stand, and there would be Pops, sitting all by himself in the stands, silently watching me run drills. On the drive home one evening, I finally asked him, "Pops, why do you come to all the practice sessions? You don't have to sit through those." He looked over at me and simply said, "Because I love watching you play, and I want to support you in everything that I do." That answer meant the world to me. It gave me a well of encouragement that ran so deep that whenever I had an off day on the field or didn't play my best, my only regret was feeling like I'd let him down. He never made me feel that way. His pride was unconditional, but his hope for me made me want to do better every single day. Pops was preserved. Pops always preserved. Pops made sure that his family was held together no matter what came our way. He loved every single one of us deeply, completely, and in his own unique way. He hated it when there was bickering or tension between us. He couldn't stand seeing the people he loved at odds. Pops was a builder and a protector of peace. He worked tirelessly to preserve the goodness around us, to keep our family tight-knit, grounded and united through every storm life threw at us. He preserved through the hard times so that we could enjoy the good ones. Now the torch is passed to us. Today it is our turn to preserve Pops in our hearts forever. We'll miss you every single day, Pops. The silence without you is heavy. But I know with complete certainty that you haven't truly left us. I feel your presence all around us, and when I need guidance, I can still hear that deep, calm voice of yours echoing clearly in my heart. Rest easy, Pops. We'll take it from here. In closing, Pops was patient. Pops was kind. Pops did not envy. He did not boast. And he was not proud. Pops did not dishonor others, nor was he self-seeking. Pops was not easily angered, and he kept no record of wrongs. Pops did not delight in badness, but rejoice in the truth. Pops always protected us, always trusted us, always hoped for us, and he will always preserve, living on in every engine we fix, every lesson we pass on, and all of our hearts.
It took me a little while to think about how to sum up my dad. I had hopes of writing a speech like Garrett's, but I was too overwhelmed by the amount of moments that he was exactly as he said. I did want to mention the beating I got that day for a school report, but it's still traumatic. And so I thought to sum up my dad in one word. He was a hero. I researched the word hero. In ancient Greece, the word hero comes from ancient Greek herous, meaning protector or warrior of godlike strength. In mythology, heroes were often demigods, a child born of a god and a mortal who performed daring and famous feats. I've looked at many other words to describe Dad, and hero is the one that sticks, because he was exactly that, not just to me, but to everyone around him. He didn't just show up in life. He performed in life, with a cape around his neck, a cigarette at the mouth, and a toolkit on standby. To some, he performed acts of saving. Some was rescuing, helping, guiding, and teaching. He gave of himself always to those who he knew, and to us as his family. He had a way of showing up at the right time to perform miracles, and there was nothing greater than hear Dad call and say, "I'm on my way." Those 4 words meant everything. It meant that we could breathe, he was on the way, and we were safe, that he had a plan. He always came at record speed, driving skills that put most to shame, and a plan that MacGyver was yet to discover. Before I move on from his fatherhood years, it wasn't until grandchildren came along that Dad reached his ultimate purpose, being an OP. For as long as I can remember, long before my marriage, Dad longed for this day. Dad's father had a little tradition, what's in my pocket. I would always find sweets in my opa's pocket, and this was something that Dad couldn't wait to pass on to his grandchildren. And so every visit from his grandkids began with what's in my pocket. It seemed that all the strict rules, table manners, and etiquettes were thrown out the window when it came to his grandchildren. He simply wanted them to feel safe and just be kids. The following tribute is from Bella and Kayla, his rats.
My earliest memory of me with my Opie was when I was a little girl, and I used to fall asleep on his lap while he tickled my back and tummy in the afternoon sun, and every time he thought he was done, I would ask him to tickle me again and again and again. He was so patient with me no matter how much of a little terror I had decided to be that day. In junior school, every Tuesday afternoon he would pick me up and take me to get an ice cream, and sometimes we would just drive for ages, so he could find me the right one. After we had finished our ice cream hunting mission, he would take me back home to their house, and we would get a start on my homework. I could always ask him for help on anything I didn't understand, and even after the 5th time of asking for help on the same thing, he wasn't even fazed. I still wonder to this day how his mental maths was so fast. When I got home from school, he would always make me my favorite food. 2 pieces of bread with butter, then tomato sauce, cut into squares and triangles. And if he had got it wrong, I'd send him back to the kitchen to start again. How he agreed to this is beyond me. When he wasn't helping me with homework or making my lunch, he would take me for a ride on his Harley up and down our road. I remember one afternoon on a weekend we had torn up some old white fabric and drawn on them to make pirate bandanas, and he had made me Captain Pookie. When all of this had finished, we went for our afternoon sleeps, of which him and Nenny would fight over me, and he usually won. As some of you know, as a little girl, I was always looking for what I could climb. Opie gave me the name Mowgli, named after the little boy from my favorite movie at the time, The Jungle Book. From then on, I have always been his little Mowgli, with unbrushed hair, walking around everywhere barefoot. One of Opie's delights was Christmas, and he was the magic of Christmas, the snow footprints, carrots on the driveway, and the 5 a.m. starts, military time, that my mom and dad had always begged him not to do, but he did anyways. You could hear him hooting from miles away. He would sit with me when I was younger and help me write my letters to Santa of all the unimaginable things a 5-year-old kid wants. When I was a bit older, I got my first drone, and he tried to teach me how to fly it. After a few lessons, I thought I was good to go, but ended up flying it into a tree, and that was when he had to rescue it with a pool net. On the topic of flying objects, I used to sit with him for hours and hours on end, as he would talk to me and teach me about all the types of aircrafts and choppers in the Air Force. This would honestly go on for hours. He also would tell me about all the nonsense that him and his Air Force pals got up to. Sitting and spending time with Opie was my favorite. He taught me how to use parts of my camera and would always encourage me to do the best in everything that I do. He loved hearing about how well I do in school and seeing me dressing up for dances. When I saw him tearing up as I walked through the door in my dress for each dance, I knew my heart was full, and so was his. Other times, like when I was sick or just tired, he'd let me lie down next to him and fall asleep, and he would make sure that I was tucked up in his blanket so that not even a toe stuck out. There was never a time when we weren't being updated about Trans-Africa tours, Ubuntu the Safari Cruiser, and George, who you'd swear he had met in person. We had started making a music playlist together, of which some of those songs will be played throughout today. We never got to finish it off though, but I'll always remember being shocked that he had so many of the songs from back in the 90s that I love and listen to today. When me and Kayla came to stay the night, Nene would often state a fact that she thought was right, and me being me, I would always correct her, and this turned into a very amusing argument between the two of us. And it didn't matter whether I was right or wrong, my Opie was always there to back me up, and I could always count on him. Opie, I love you more, to the moon and stars and back, and everything and everything and everything and back. And every night when I look up at the stars, I know you'll be there watching over us and keeping us safe each night. Thank you for everything that you did for this family and everything that you have taught us. You meant the world to me, and you left a special place in my heart that can never be filled by anyone else. I love you and miss you the mostest, and would give anything for one more hug from you. I loves you. So the other day I was sitting in his room and I came across a diary, and he managed to get down a funny story, all of one memoir that I'd like to share with you all today. He wrote down, "My earliest memories go back to when I was about 4 or 5 years old, when I went to creche. I remember a school called Riverside, but not sure if in Ndola or Kitwe. In Kitwe, I went to Frederick Knapp School. I started doing Cub Scouts there, where I was dropped off and picked up later. I remember getting all of my swimming certificates there, which I remember was good fun. I had a crush on an Afrikaans girl in my grade. Her name was Sandra Kukamore. Haha. She and I did all our swimming certificates together, with a heart in quotation marks. She told me one day that she would give me a kiss if I ran through a burning pile of leaves. And I did. But I burned holes in my socks for which when I got back home, my mother handed me a hiding. But yes, I did get this kiss. Haha. Thank you.
My OP was a very special OP to me. He was always so happy to see me and loved to tell me stories. Through these stories is when I realized that he was actually very naughty when he was younger, and would often have many of us laughing at his adventurous stories. I especially loved when he picked me up from school. We would sit together on a late afternoon on the veranda trying to get through my homework, whilst he poured me a cream soda and gave me 2 chocolate biscuits and a butter and tomato sauce sami. Over these past few weeks, he would tell me stories of how he introduced Nenny to a Masasa hot dog. Now this was a bread roll and banana bought from the vendor outside their factory in Masasa, and chopped in half, the banana was shoved in like a hot dog. This was one of his favorite foods. These past 3 weeks, he also introduced me to his all-time favorite, which is baked beans, onion rings, and cheese toasted on a bread roll. It has now become one of my favorite meals, and I will always think of him when I have one. We would always talk about the food he had or created. One of our last conversations was him telling me that the next time I stayed, we were to have a bunny chow. I still look forward to the day we sit down together and have a bunny chow. Opie was one of a kind, and I will miss trying to sleep on his couch whilst he pretended to throw a pillow at me, give me a fright, so that I had to sleep with one eye open and have a laugh. Whilst goodbyes are hard, we know that this is not goodbye forever. I look forward to the day when I can sit down with my Opie again, sharing stories and enjoying baked beans, onion rings, and cheese toasted on a bread roll. Until then, I will carry his laughter, kindness, and all of his stories, and most of all, the wonderful, special memories that I made with my Opie.
Dad's best heroic performances were on every single game we played at school. Up and down the sidelines cheering us on fiercely. Every school report was to be celebrated. Birthday shopping was a performance. Breakfast first at Wimpy, ideas and a list created, and then we went off to purchase the entire list. Wrapping the gifts, again a performance. Right angles at the corners, perfect handwriting on the card, something we all still do today. Teaching moments were performances too. We rolled our eyes, he huffed, he puffed, and he whistled in delight. Pulling his nose and adjusting his shorts. It was a sign that the long haul was for us and he was in his element. A moment where we were about to learn a great deal. From building forts and sandcastles in the sand to packing cars with Tetris precision. Long family trips, camping trips were epic performances too. We then had campfire songs and skits, learning to tie fishing knots and service cars. Learning to drive, yet another performance. An impossible parallel park was made extremely possible with yet another nose pull, an adjustment of his shorts, a cigarette, a flick of the steering wheel. Learning to change the tire was apparently also part of the driving test, as well as a well-planned escape route when we were driving home at night. We had to flash 3 times so he knew it was us. We had to stay calm, and then he would prey on the person chasing you. I never really thought of Dad as theatrical at all until I began writing this. And it was in that moment that I realized everything Dad did was a performance, a showcase and an art. Dad had other performances too. The day dear Lorca used his carving knife to chop up the dog's bones. The display of utter hatred at the immortal green fly that always arrived to welcome him to the table when eating any sort of snack or food. His performance over supercilious people, fake smiles and irritating laughs. Some of his best performances were actually discovering Pensioners' Day at supermarkets. He loved grocery shopping later on in his life, and he would write a list of absolutely irrelevant items that were 100% detrimental to survival, none of which Mom approved at all. His trips would be regaled with the horror of what some cheeky old cow had stolen from his trolley, which he would then steal back at the earliest possible moment and check out through the till. How some miserable cow dared to reach for the tomato that he had eyed out, but was yet to pick. For those of you that have watched One Foot in the Grave, he affectionately bore the name Victor Meldrew. He had the ability to say, "I don't bloody believe it," without saying anything at all. Locking up at night was an entire procedure in itself. In another life, we all swore he was a prison officer. It took methodical precision, warden-sized key rings, and a series of locks. An announcement to all those who hadn't yet acknowledged this act, seeking validation that we were now safely locked in for the night. The box of keys was carted off to his bedside, lest we thought of escaping. But some of the most treasured memories of Dad are actually the quiet ones. He seldom spoke words from his heart. Instead, he held space to communicate through silence. There were no words. None were needed. Just two people sitting together in the quiet. Many of us here today have sat in silence with Dad. He was, in many ways, a silent man. He didn't fill a room with opinions. He didn't feel the need to tell you what he thought about everything. He just observed silently. And when he did speak, you listened. Because when Dad spoke, there was usually something profound underneath it. He didn't view success in material things. He viewed them in values and principles. And so this next tribute is from Justin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have had the privilege of being part of this family for over 22 years now. And from the moment I met Pops, he fully accepted me and welcomed me into the family. He and Ma clearly had faith that Lauren was raised well and would choose an appropriate partner. And that she clearly did, as you can all see. Pops was always unassuming, and he let his work do the talking. Many here will remember that he was always the first one into the office, and we've heard so many times already today how he led by example. He helped so many other people out without there ever being a fuss or a need to return a favor. He was selfless and caring, and he always loved to see others happy and doing well. And whilst his last few years were physically harder, many of us remember Pops as the tough, no-nonsense character who never asked twice. He had a disciplined, regimental style of doing things that I found exceedingly endearing, and that has shaped a large part of who I am today. Discipline is probably the most important word in my vocabulary. And Pops instilled a lot of that in me. He taught me so many lessons, and he took the time to invest in a rough around the edges, opinionated young upstart, and he eventually managed to turn him into somewhat of a gentleman in more recent times. Pops didn't just teach me about being a macho guy who could hunt and fish or service cars or generators. He taught me to be gentle and caring, to not always need to have the last word, and to know when to stop talking. Pops taught me to be a gentleman and how to take care of a lady, and I am blessed beyond measure that God gave me 3 beautiful girls to look after. And unfortunately for me, I also have to take care of my mother-in-law now too. Because Pops would expect nothing less from either of his boys. When I turned 40, I wrote a letter to Pops for Father's Day. I wanted to sum up the many lessons that he taught me and what he meant to me. So I'm just going to read that letter. Pops, because of you, I've learnt what it means to be a man, a husband, and a father. Because of you, I've learnt how to love and treat my wife and children. Because of you, I've learnt to service an engine, shoot a gun, go off-roading, catch a fish, make a plan and fix a leak. Because of you, I've learned how to run a home and be a gentle man, not ruling by fear or anger, but with love, compassion, and understanding. Because of you, I have learnt how a man should conduct himself, to be a man amongst men, and to work hard every day to earn respect. Because of you, I have learnt much and become the man that I am today. I am forever grateful for your influence in my life and for the lessons still to come. Happy Father's Day to the man who is my inspiration. You are my role model, teacher, mentor, and friend. Thank you for believing in me and for everything that you have done for me. I love you. Pops taught us all many lessons, and last week he knew it was time to go. He saw that we'd finished all the homework that he'd given us over the years, and he knew that we were all doing okay. We've made our own way, built our own families that Pops was proud of. There's no more quiet lessons to be taught, just lives for us to live now that'll honor his memory and the lessons that he taught us. We know that we as your kids have made you all proud, Pops, and we will continue to do so. For now, you can rest, because yours was a job well done and a race well run. Yours was a life of service to others and of setting an example for the rest of us to follow. In the immortal words of one of Pops's favorite films, Gladiator, now you are free, and I will see you again. But not yet. Not yet. I love you, Pops.
It would be unfair to celebrate Pops's life without adding in the very thing that drove us all nuts. We affectionately called it popping balloons. Every idea that we had was to be interrogated. A million questions. What about this? What about that? Have you thought about this angle? What happens if this goes wrong? By the time Dad had finished with your idea, the balloon was completely deflated, and ironically, we would walk away even more determined to do it. Looking back, it was never about popping our balloons at all. Dad was teaching us to think. He taught us that there was no such thing as a shortcut. There was no quick fix. There had to be a plan, and there had to be a list. There was always step 1 and always step 2, and then probably another list based on that. As a family, we're much more inclined to just jump. Dad's job, apparently, was to stand underneath us with a clipboard and explain why jumping was a terrible idea. And yet somehow his way made us stronger, because underneath all those questions and all that criticism was something incredibly valuable. He wanted us to get it right. And when a plan finally came together, Dad had his own little celebration. He would pull his nose, adjust his shorts yet again, light a cigarette, and that was it. That was Dad's version of jumping up and down with excitement. And those are the little things we'll miss. The things that nobody necessarily noticed, the things that were just simply Pops, because he was a man of principles. Family came first, integrity mattered, and your word was your word. If you said you were going to do something, you did it. He didn't just teach us those things by telling it, he lived them. Dad didn't want us to be small. Not yesterday, not today, and not ever. I sometimes think that when we came home and told him about some asshole we had encountered, and how we had stood up to them, hit them, told them exactly where to go, there was a part of him that was incredibly proud that he had raised such outspoken thugs. He wanted us to have conviction. He wanted us to know what we believed in and have the courage to stand by it. I couldn't remember a time where he corrected me for being a thug. He simply giggled and his tears welled up with pride. He knew that we were living our lives and standing up for what was right. There was very little that he loved more in life than providing for his family and making sure each of us had what we needed. Always a plan, a solution, and something he could fix. Until one fine day when Dad decided that he had needs too. And that one fine day, a limited edition, shiny black Harley Davidson came roaring into the office, unapologetically and magnificently. Not a single fuck given. Years of squirreling his salary, he gifted himself his dream ride for his 50th birthday. Proudly, dear Corny, love Corny. And that was Dad too. He had spent so much of his life giving to everyone else, and he deserved his Harley. We loved seeing him on it and loved the pleasure that it brought him. The final tribute today comes from Mum. 44 years of marriage and 49 years together. Promises like theirs aren't seen very often in the world we live in today. They promised for richer or for poorer, through sickness and in health. And what began as a bet of Bengal juice if she could win her race. For those who aren't old enough, this is a chocolate milk packet from Dairy Board. Ended in a silent moment filled with a lifetime of memories.
I first met Corny when I was 13 years old. He was 15. I wasn't terribly impressed because he had skinny legs. I met him again a year later when my friend at school, which shamefully was Roosevelt, wanted to go and meet her boyfriend at Churchill. Needless to say, the boyfriend was Corny, whose eyes lit up when he saw me, and he totally ignored his girlfriend, took off his tracksuit top for me, to sit on the grass, while his girlfriend was made just to sit on the grass. I still have that tracksuit top. A year later, we were dating, as long as he wore jeans to hide his legs. Little did I know that those legs turned to rubber when he danced, and he could almost rock better than Elvis Presley. Many was the time that he commandeered an entire dance floor with everyone clapping him on. I knew by the time I was 17 that he was my one true love, and it stayed that way for nearly 50 years. When I looked at our marriage certificate this last week, I remembered our wedding vows, and I realized that we had fulfilled every one of them. We had had better and worse, we had had sickness and health, and we had experienced richer and poorer. And yet we had made a promise on our wedding day to never mention or consider divorce, no matter how rocky the road got. And there were rocky roads and beautiful roads and mountains and rugged craggy passes that we had to climb through. But even in our darkest moments, we clung to our vows and honored our promise to God. We were both so very different, and despite all odds, we got to have a beautiful life together and had 2 amazing children that he was immensely proud of. We had such amazing times and memories, too many to count, and we loved each other through all. As I said, we were exact opposites of each other, and as many of you would know, Corny didn't tolerate fools gladly, and he was not one to smile and wave if you got on the wrong side of him. Yet throughout all the many messages sent to me on his passing, I was reminded again and again of what a kind soul he was. I honestly can't remember anyone that needed help that was sent away by him. It was always a joke when we had our company that it was actually an NGO for all the waifs and strays that Corny met, and that could be found outside our factory and shop doors every month end, and I'm sure Fareed could attest to that. When we lost our company, he was more heartsore for all of them that he could no longer assist than he was for even our own welfare. I'm so blessed to have known what true deep love is, and I'm forever grateful to the Lord for his provision of Corny for me. My darling, you've left a deep hole in my heart that can never be filled, and I will miss you so very much. You were my best friend, the one that always had my back and supported me, my lover, my husband, father, grandfather. How do I say goodbye to you, my darling? We have shared most of our lives together, so many memories. You are in the birds that fly around, every fish eagle I ever see, the flowers in our garden, our beloved cats, our children, our grandchildren. As you all know, Corny suffered greatly with his health these last years, and a dear friend sent me the following song, which immediately made me think of Corny, who I honestly believe is now free, happy, positive, with no more cares, and no longer ill. And I felt he was singing the song to us. To my dear family and my extended family, who without I could have never got through this last week, I believe this is what he would sing to you right now. Where's Trav?
Good morning, peace and blessings, my beautiful family. The sun came up, that means you've been given another opportunity. Come on now, let's celebrate life together. The morning sun is shining bright, another chance to make things right. Leave your worries by the door. Today is worth so much more. Stretch your arms and lift your head. Don't let yesterday fill your bed. Every heartbeat says you're here. Walk with hope instead of fear. Take a breath, look around. Your blessing could be all around. One more sunrise, one more song. Keep believing, keep moving on. Good morning, rise and shine. Today is yours and today is mine. Lift somebody while you're climbing too. Love comes right back home to you. Never give up, hold your head up high. Never give up, reach up to the sky. Every brand new day we see starts with hope and harmony. Tell your family that you care. Kindness fills the morning air. Share a smile along the way. You might change somebody's day. Don't let anger steal your light. Choose forgiveness, choose what's right. Every dream begins somewhere. Faith will always meet you there. Listen, some people pray just to see the sunrise. Some people wish for one more opportunity. So don't waste this beautiful morning complaining. Wake up with gratitude. Walk with purpose. Speak life over yourself. Encourage somebody today. And whatever life puts in front of you, never give up. Good morning, rise and shine. Every mountain starts one climb. Hand in hand, we'll make it through. There's a brighter day for me and you. Never give up, that's our song. Keep your faith, keep moving on. Every sunrise reminds us all. Stand back up whenever you fall. Good morning.
A few months ago, I read an article about slow goodbyes. I really do believe that Pops had his hand in this. Mom learnt to finally lock the back door. She figured out how to service the generator and even DIY a little bit. Slowly he started handing responsibility back to her, even though we didn't see it at the time. We got to share our hearts, we got to give birth to our kids, and slowly he guided us every step of the way, giving us each a little more responsibility every day that he was with us. The last few years were rough watching Pop sit on his bed. So many times we thought that he had seemingly given up on life, And yet today I stand here and I wonder if it was his way of forcing each of us to start living life alone without him. Slowly showing us that he could no longer be on his way to save us and allowing us to save ourselves instead. My greatest sadness today is that our hero is gone. For many of us, we believed that there was nothing Dad couldn't do. He was just simply immortal. And perhaps that's why this feels so impossible. Because suddenly there's something that he can't fix. There's something he can't make a plan for. And there's something we can't call him about. And that's the part that we struggle with most. The world feels different knowing that he is out there somewhere and that we can't pick up the phone. We'll never hear the words, "I'm on my way." And then somehow, Dad left this world in the only and exact way that Dad would. At 5 a.m. on the dot. Military timing to the very end. It was no coincidence. Dad woke every morning, every day of his life at 4 a.m. He showered and he began his day at 5 a.m. And so at 5 a.m. a week ago this morning, Dad began a new day, a new journey, reporting for duty in his next life. And whilst our hearts desperately want to keep him here, perhaps there's something fitting about that. He left us doing what he had always done, moving forward and beginning again. If we could have one more conversation with you, we wouldn't ask you to make another plan for us, Dad. We wouldn't ask you to fix anything. We would just simply look at you and say thank you. Thank you for giving us such a solid foundation of principles, of values and of morals, for teaching us to live by conviction, for teaching us that our word matters and teaching us to stand up for our beliefs, even being a thug, for protecting us and for challenging us. Thank you for questioning every one of our ridiculous ideas. And thank you for giving so much of yourself to us. Thank you for loving us completely. And so, Pops has said for many years that at his memorial, of which he wanted no fuss at all, he would love bagpipes to play for us. And so today we welcome in the bagpipes and we just send Pops off with, "We love you, Pops." Thank you so much to everyone for being here today, for joining us. What Pops would have absolutely loved, but we're 2 hours past Baku time. So please stay, have some snacks. Oh, there's boerewors rolls, accompanied by a green fly that has been called in specially for today. And we know if you see the green fly, say hi to Dad. It's right him. But there's snacks and drinks and boerewors rolls. And thank you so much for everyone being here today.
We now bring this stream to a close. Thank you for joining us today from wherever you are in the world. Your presence, even remotely, was a source of comfort and strength for the bereaved family. As we conclude, we honor a life lived fully, a spirit that touched so many, and a memory that will forever resonate in our hearts. The family deeply appreciates your support, your love, and the kindness you have shown during this difficult time. If you'd like to leave a personal memory or message of condolence, please find the dedicated tribute section below the stream. Your words will be a cherished keepsake for the family. On behalf of Muzukuru Funeral Streaming, we thank you once more for connecting with the family today.